Now, it is important to note here that South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, he issued a state of emergency for the state of South Carolina. The Charleston mayor also issued a declaration of emergency. And we're going to turn now to back here at home, our Savannah Mayor Van Johnson, and what he had to say earlier. Check it out.
Thank you, and good morning to you. And unfortunately, my weekly presser has been dominated by something else, so we'll just use that opportunity to update good people at the city of Savannah about what is going on. We're very fortunate to have with us Dennis Jones of the Chatham Emergency Management Agency, as well as Audrey King of Georgia Power, and Faye Damasio of Chatham Area Transit that's here, along with Team Savannah, and they'll offer updates as we go through this. I think in short, the important thing here is that we are in a significant storm event right now. Right now. We're feeling the wind, we're feeling the water, and it's going to get worse throughout the day, and Dennis can talk more about that. We have to take this seriously. We have to take it seriously. And so we are thinking and praying for our friends in Florida. As you know, Idalia made landfall about 7:45 this morning, and they are feeling it. They are feeling it, and it's heading this way. And so if you have no reason to be anywhere, don't. We don't have a curfew at this time. We want you just to stay off the streets. And for those who have to be absolutely on the streets, we want you to be careful as you traverse the city, because different parts of our community will feel different effects at different times. So for us, this is what we do. All year long, we prepare, we coordinate, we plan, and now we execute the plans that we have made. In these situations, we coordinate with our other brother and sister municipalities, with Chatham Emergency Management Agency, because we're one community. But likewise, we also have some things that are very specific to us. I've heard from the White House, who called the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has called, again, offering their support to us. Also, the offices of Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff offering their support as well. We have also been had several command policy group meetings through the Chatham Emergency Management Agency, in which we've been sharing and receiving information. We are extremely concerned about what this might mean. For us, we want to make sure that all of our citizens, particularly those that are seniors, particularly those that have medical issues, are able to stay in place. We will open up a safety center today. The city manager will get more into details about that from noon to 8 today. And this will be at the Cultural Arts Center. And this is for people who just need an opportunity to be and feel safe. And we'll have that open. We'll have that staffed. We'll have very, very basic supplies there. And the purpose of this is not necessarily luxury, it's for safety, to get you through the storm. And so the city manager will offer more about that. We are very grateful to our faith community who's been working with us to make sure that our homeless and roofless neighbors are taken care of. The Chatham Savannah Authority for the Homeless, also Union Mission and the Salvation Army, which have increased their capacity to get us through these times. We also have a street team that is out on the streets right now. We'll be from 8 to 11, going around to places that we know where people usually hang out, and to make sure they have an opportunity for shelter. The city of Savannah is closed today, and tomorrow we'll make that decision later on today. We hope that the emergency kits we've been talking about, you have, because it's time to use them. We want you to be prepared for power outages, and Ms. King will tell you what to do if you have one. But she tells me that we have folks ready, but the fact is, if you lose power, there might be some time before we're able to get it on. If you live in a flood-prone area, then we also will make sure if you move your car to higher ground, and make sure that you are able to stay put somewhere until the waters rescind. So the city is under a local state of emergency, which authorizes the mayor and likewise city manager to take some actions. Governor Kemp has also issued a state of emergency for the entire state of Georgia. And so for any questions about city services or to submit a service request, residents can call 311. Service requests can also be submitted online at savannahga.gov/311 request. There'll be some updates on road closures. I know the Talmadge Bridge will be closing later today, and we will post those at savannahga.gov/flood alert. And so we want you to continue following our social media outlets, City of Savannah on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. And for more information on hurricane preparedness, visit ready.gov/hurricanes. So again, this is real. This is for real. Don't take it lightly. We want you to be safe.
And that was Savannah Mayor Van Johnson there talking to us. But our continuing live team coverage continues right now with WJCL 22 News' Lydia Blackstone. She's reporting from River Street in downtown Savannah.
And now, Lydia, give us an idea of what the conditions are, because as we look over your shoulder there, that's the river, and that's where they don't want to come over to the pavement where you're standing.
Yeah, and we talked about this last night, Shannon and Greg, just that this water at high tide is going to look a lot different. But you can see it's a lot more choppier now than it was last night when we were out here. And that's because we're starting to get a few gusts of wind, a few rainstorms. Right now, it's pretty quiet out here. Not too much rain, not too much wind. We are still seeing some people kind of walk down the street. But, you know, we were at that press conference that Mayor Johnson had earlier this morning. And he says, if you don't have to be out, don't be out. That's why we're out here. We're out here to give you those eyes and ears so that you can stay at home and stay safe. And just keep updated with us here at WJCL. We're going to show you what this storm looks like here on River Street throughout the night. So just keep checking in. Shannon, Greg, back to you.
Lydia Blackstone reporting live there on River Street. Thankfully, we could look over her shoulder. We could see that the pavement is not wet. Doesn't seem like there's any flooding at this time. But, of course, that always could change with the storm coming over the way it is, and our forecast team staying on top of it.
Yes, because things can change in a moment. We have been keeping you covered with Hurricane Idalia since 4 this morning. We will continue to keep you covered to try to keep you safe. And right now we want to check in with our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Nelson, for the latest on the storm. Jeremy.
All right, here we go. Let's set the stage for you. This made landfall is a major hurricane Category 3. I crossed over the Big Bend area of Florida. Let's track this now, and we can do this for you. We'll move our radar around and really get in depth here. We also have a tornado watch in place for our area. That goes until 10 p.m. for portions of the low country. Most of southeast Georgia will see the tornado warning go away as we move through about 3 p.m. this afternoon. We had numerous tornado warnings around a bit earlier, and something we'll be watching closely, the center of circulation, or the eye of Idalia. That is going to continue to progress off to the north and east. This corridor right here that's just north of the Valdosta area, and we'll zoom in here just a little bit more because we want to do some storm analysis on that. This is the area of just torrential rain, and it's starting to near Baxley, Jeff Davis County. Your winds are ramping up there. We have a bit of a lull right now in and around the Savannah area. Certainly have some little spotty showers moving through. Same in the low country. It could get a downpour or two, but overall we're seeing conditions across our area, a little bit of a lull in the rain. Flash flood warnings right now. So you need to take this seriously. Jeff Davis, Appling towards Bacon County. You also have the wind starting to ramp up, and that's where the center of circulation is at. What we can do here is move our radar around, and we'll take it down to our southern counties right now. and show you that center of circulation. Right there it is. That's the sort of the eye of the storm right now. Northwest of it, and this has been forecast very well, we continue to say well to the west of I-95. That is where the swath, the heaviest rain will be. A little bit of drier air working in towards the coastline and I-95. We'll still spin some showers in, but for us now, it's really awaiting the stronger winds with this. The National Hurricane Center, we'll take a look at their update here in just a second. I think at the last check, the winds were about 85 or estimated at 90 miles per hour, very close to the center of circulation. So some of those stronger winds will start to near areas like Bacon and Pierce counties, Jeff Davis, also Appling County, as we go into the afternoon now. Here we are at 109. We're watching very closely downtown Savannah. A lot of this water should be pushing out of the Savannah River. We're headed towards low tide. Well, we had some heavy downpours this morning. We also have those onshore winds right now wrapping around the circulation. So the water's having a hard time leaving our rivers, intercoastal waterways. We also have runoff pouring in. So what we're noticing is we're headed towards low tide, but it's a slow progression. The water's having a hard time leaving. So what that does then, when the tide starts rushing in later on, we'll have to watch right now potential for some moderate coastal flooding. Here's the hurricane alerts that we have across our area. Really, you just need to focus on the impacts. And right now, those impacts are a lot of locations. Winds will gust 50 to maybe about 65 miles per hour. If there is a gust that hits 70, it's probably our coastline or down here for Bacon and Pierce counties. We'll toss it now to meteorologist Victoria Kokinos for more on the coastal flooding.
Thanks, Jeremy. We are seeing the impacts right now. One we could potentially see later on this evening as Idalia makes its way through will definitely be the coastal flooding. Now, this morning high tide reached about 9 feet. The next high tide we're really keeping an eye on is later on this evening. That's around 9 p.m. and the forecast high tide is 10.3 feet. And that's if Idalia happens to slow down. That definitely could reach that. Moderate flooding is at 10 feet. Highway 80 closes around 10 as well. That's when it floods. So we'll keep an eye on that as we head through the evening. Again, that's around 9 p.m. for tonight as Idalia makes its way through. We also have the supermoon in place, and that again is forecast to be 10.3 feet. That's why we have a storm surge warning that's stretching from Chatham County up towards Beaufort County for our coastal areas, 2.4 feet possible. We'll watch south of Chatham County, stretching from McIntosh up towards Bryan and Liberty County. Now, Idalia is already making its way through. That's why that watch is in place now, but also potentially at 2.4 feet. So again, as it makes its way through, we can see those winds push water our direction. We are definitely expecting the winds to be speeding up as we head through the day. So wind speeds right now sustained about 20 miles per hour in Savannah. As that eye starts to make its way closer towards the area and that eye wall pushes through, that's when we could potentially see wind gusts topping about 50 to 60 miles per hour. Now that's below hurricane limits, but we still have that watch in place. So again, as we go throughout the evening, you can see the center of that storm making its way through potentially from about 6 p.m. Some areas wind gusts reaching about 50 miles per hour. That's towards Metter and Statesboro, definitely where it's closest towards that eye wall. And even towards our coastal areas, we could see some wind gusts reaching about 60 to isolated 70 miles per hour, mainly towards the coast. Not all of us will see that at all. And then as we head through Wednesday evening, the rain begins to clear out. Wind lingers just a little bit. Heading towards Thursday morning, we begin to weaken with the winds, reaching the teens, and then we finally start to see conditions improve through the evening. We still have that tornado watch in place for tonight. That goes until 10 p.m. We had a few isolated tornadoes earlier this morning as those bands made their way through. As those bands spin on towards land, they were easily rotating. Now these are spin up isolated tornadoes. The tornado watch has been canceled already for Jeff Davis, Bacon, Pierce, and Appling County. So tornado watch in place, that's until 10 p.m. That's mainly as those bands move on shore. Inland areas overall are in the clear for the moment, and then that tornado watch does stretch as we go up towards Charleston. Go ahead and toss it back towards Shannon and Greg for an update.
Okay, Victoria, thanks a lot. As I was talking to you just a few minutes ago, even the mayor of Bluffton warning their community, their folks out there, that they should expect more rain, more wind. winds than originally planned, as the storm clearly is making its way and its presence felt in our communities.
Yes, and let's toss it right now to Andy Cole to see what it's like in Statesboro. I know he's been out in the field all morning driving, and at one point he was outside the vehicle to check on the weather. Do we have Andy? Andy, you're back in the vehicle now. Where
Yes,
are
you
you?
do.
What are you saying?
So I am leaving downtown Statesboro. We are actually, me and my photographer Declan are on our way to Reedsville, where we anticipate that pretty much we will encounter the eye wall of Idalia. We are expecting heavier rains than we're seeing right now. We told you all morning that we have seen 5 minutes of heavy rain, 5 minutes of light rain, 5 minutes of heavy rain, back and forth and back and forth. We're seeing these spotty showers. We're seeing kind of right now a light version of this rain. We are, of course, remembering to stay safe, to drive below the speed limit, because we want to be safe out here. You should not be out here. The city of Statesboro, of course, is under a state of emergency alongside many other communities in our viewing area throughout southeast Georgia and the Low Country. So as I said, we are on our way now to Reedsville, Georgia. It'll take us about 40 minutes or so, which means we'll be in the car for a little while, but we will be bringing you reports live from the road. So far, we've checked in with officials from Statesboro. There seems to be no damage so far, no injuries, nothing like that, just a lot of heavy rain. So far, so good, but in the words of Ted Wynn, the Bullitt County Emergency Management Director, they anticipate things will get worse. So, of course, we will remain live. We will remain safe, as all of you should continue to do. And we will send it back to you, Greg and Shannon, in the studio.
Andy, as we're looking at your video there with Declan shooting, or you driving and Declan
Yes.
shooting, which one, we don't know. But looking at the roads there, doesn't seem to be that much flooding so far.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Greg. You know, I lived in Statesboro for 4 years, throughout college, and Statesboro is not like Savannah, where you see a little bit of rain and then you have some streets, River Street and Victory, they start flooding. That's not necessarily the case here in Statesboro. We have not seen any flooding or had any reports come into us about flooding. And I should note that, by the way, Declan is driving. I'm sitting here in the passenger seat just watching and talking to y'all. What else you got?
All right. Andy Cole on his way to Reedsville, reporting from Statesboro right now.
And so far, there is also no flooding on River Street. Much different story in 2017 when Hurricane Irma hit. Flooding everywhere. In fact, we all remember that blue Challenger in the parking lot submerged in water. Again, a much different case there right now, but things could change quickly.
So we're going to toss it over to Lydia Blackstone. She is reporting from River Street, right by the wall there that so many people go and take a picture and stand and look out in the river, and give us an idea of the situation right there, because Jeremy was talking about the fact that right now the water is having a little bit of a tough time getting up the channel during low tide.
Yeah, Greg, Shannon, we were just talking about that. Victoria just said this, and I listened to it. It was the 9 feet thing, where it was 9 feet higher, 10 feet higher during high tide. Look at this water right now. So you can see where it's at right now. Not really high, not coming over this dock. But if it hits 9, I mean, I'm 5'7" for reference, so that's 2 of me of water coming up if it does come here at high tide. It's starting to rain a little bit more now right now, but I'm going to show you this boat. We see the Georgia Queen down there. They had to extra strap that in. I'm seeing some boats on these waterways. You know, those ones are we're going to have to take an extra look at to see when this water comes in, if it gets more choppy, what it's going to look like out here. But right now it's fairly calm. There's not a lot of flooding, not a lot of rain right now, but we are getting some coming in. But we're going to keep you updated on what that rain's going to look like, what the wind is right here on River Street. But I'll send it back to y'all.
Okay, Lydia Blackstone along River Street, like you said, 2017, much different story. At this point right now, things look okay.
Yeah, because driving in, it wasn't too bad. I was worried yesterday. I knew I had to be in at 1 p.m. I was thinking, should I leave earlier because the storm may hit, but fortunately, that's not the case. It is supposed to come in a little bit later. But we want to toss it over to Brooke Butler, who is live in our newsroom right now with, I think, some video to show us.
Brooke, what do you have?
Yeah, Shannon and Greg, it looks like the wind and rain are starting to pick up in some of our areas. We want to show you some of the videos that we've received. First, check out this video from the landings in Savannah. You can see the wind just blowing a bit there. It looks dry there at the moment, but you can see the dark skies, clouds definitely forming, but nothing too extreme there in terms of wind just yet. Now we want to take you over to Richmond Hill. You can see in this video, everything also looking dry, but this was taken by Meredith Jones at around 11 this morning. Again, look at the sky. The clouds looking pretty dark there. Now we want to take you over to Florida. A much different scene there. This is near Perry, Florida, where the wind was so powerful it actually blew over a gas station awning. Perry is just 22 miles from where Hurricane Idalia made landfall as a Category 4 storm. You could just see the devastation there, the power of the wind, the fact that it was able to knock over that gas station awning just shows you really how strong those winds were, Greg. And I want to note that the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office is now starting to report some fallen trees. They just sent out a tweet on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying that a tree is down in the Bluffton area. They're working to clear that. But of course, we're going to continue tracking Idalia, and we'll bring you any new videos as they come in. Greg?
Okay, monitoring the video that's coming in. What you saw from Florida was absolutely amazing, frightening, because not only did it blow down the awning, you saw that the awning was held down by bricks and cement, and certainly not able to withstand the winds from the storm.
And that's why it's so very important to tie down those loose items outside of your home. I did that yesterday. Didn't see a lot of people in the neighborhood doing that, maybe not taking it as seriously. Maybe they're out now doing it, because I know earlier in Pooler we did hear the tornado sirens going off, and this thing is a lot more serious, I think, than people are taking it.
And that was a smart thing for you to do, because, just that little plant, and I'm big into plants and vegetables, those little plants with a heavy wind, could pick it up, and next thing you know, it's a projectile.
Exactly, and it may go across the street and injure someone or damage someone else's property, and you definitely do not want that. We've been covering Hurricane Idalia since 4 this morning. We're going to go wall to wall for you, trying to keep you safe, and we want to toss it over to Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson.
Jeremy.
And right now, I would say with the rain upon us, the wind starting to pick up, this is definitely just a now casting event. That's the term we use because the impacts are here. It's just sort of gauging across our area the type of impacts and whether you're seeing out your own windows. So we'll show you a lot of live views. We're going to get our DOT cameras fired up to show you where the absolute worst conditions are at across our area, and we don't want you going out chasing those. We want you to stay in the comfort of your home, and hopefully you'll keep power. If you can do a few things for us, if you happen to take a picture or a video out your window of something exciting is going on, stop by our You Local Georgia and the Low Country page. We want to see your weather updates there. Victoria, myself, we have awesome social media pages. We interact with all our viewers, so stop by, say hi, and let us know what the weather conditions are at. Let's take you first to Hardeeville. So in the Low Country, you're going to see the winds ramp up maybe just a little bit later this afternoon into this evening. Right now, that's not too bad of a wind. We probably have winds about 10 to at times 20 miles per hour, a little higher gusts from time to time. You've had some of these feeder bands rotate into the Low Country. You've had rain from time to time. We go out to Tybee Island right now. Wish we had a windshield wiper that we could just clear things off or wipe our camera off, but if you look through some of that sort of foggy look right now, you can see these huge white caps, the waves building in the distance. We're supposed to be headed towards lower tide, but the water definitely, since the winds are starting to push it towards the coastline, having a hard time exiting our tidal creeks, rivers, and intercoastal waterways, and it's piling up. So the low tide probably not quite as low as the forecast, and then we really have to watch this evening. Wind gusts right now, the highest, and these are gusts, they're not sustained, down in the Waycross area. So we take a look here, center of Idalia, right around Alma and the Waycross area. So you can see there, even though what should be probably some of the highest winds they are going to see in the next 2 or 3 hours, 51, that's not close to hurricane force. That would be 74 miles per hour. We do have some hurricane warnings, tropical storm warnings for parts of our area. But again, we are focusing on the impacts and what you can expect. So a lot of locations will have peak winds 50, 60 miles per hour. There's a lower chance that we get those winds closer to 70 down across southern tier areas and also our coastline. 36 mile per hour gust on Tybee Island, 25 in Beaufort, and currently this just updated Hazelhurst. I believe that's the peak gust for you at this point. That is a tropical storm force gust. Those start at 39 miles per hour, go to 73. So a lot of us will see strong tropical storm force conditions as the afternoon goes on. And if you haven't seen a lot of wind yet, you should not at this point. The center of circulation down across South Georgia, that's going to start tracking its way off to the north and east, probably moving across maybe northern Bryan County, Effingham County, potentially Jasper County. There's a chance it could get into Chatham County. And if you're right under the center of circulation, your winds will have a bit of a lull, and then they'll ramp up once this moves by. Another thing we can pick out here with our Storm Tracker radar network, we had the swath of rain move in this morning for our coastal areas. The focus now, with a little drier punch of air wrapping in, is this huge wall of just absolutely torrential tropical downpours on the northwest side. And that is just going to sort of bulldoze its way across our interior areas to the west of 95. So if you're around Hazelhurst, in the Cobbtown area, Vidalia, up towards Metter, Statesboro, potentially even northern Bryan County around Pembroke, you could get into some of this heavy rain. Sylvania a little bit later on, and we'll be watching that closely. There's also lightning with that, so this isn't something you want to go play around in, and the winds will be ramping up in that area. Let's take a closer look now. Flash flood warnings are in place. These locations are picking up that rain probably an inch every 20, 30 minutes. And if this is over your area a couple hours, you'll easily be picking up 3, 4, 5 inches of rain just from this part of the storm. Notice the activity I-95 and the coastline is a little more scattered out there. At this second, we don't have any tornado warnings across our area, but we still have that tornado watch until this evening. It has been trimmed away down here because the center of the storm is over that area. The tornado threat, for the most part, is with some of those bands that rotate in. So just a watch right now, no active tornado warnings across southeast Georgia and the low country. We want to give you a lot of views of the outdoors here down on the River Street area. It appears at this second the camera may be frozen, but this gives you an idea. It looks like the water, here's what we want. We want the water to be going this direction out of the channel, out of the river, because we're headed towards low tide. You can clearly see, though, I believe the surface water, the wind is pushing it towards like the port of Savannah. So all this water, we want it to exit out of the Savannah River, kind of head back out into the ocean. We get the water levels down before we start to see high tide, and that comes up this evening. So it's sort of a race against time. Can we get some water out, and can we get the center of circulation to pass by us? Winds flip around, and then once they're to the northwest, probably some of that water would not be able to overcome stronger northwest winds. So the coastal flooding, we're watching that closely. There is a chance of moderate coastal flooding this evening. Wind gusts, a lot of locations, again, 50 to 60 is where you'll peak. There's an outside chance that some areas will be around 70. And the rainfall totals, there's going to be a huge variation across our area. Where I showed you those flash flood warnings inland, some of those spots, 6 inches or more. A lot of locations, though, will fall in about 2 to 5. Lowest will be coastal areas of Georgia, and especially down maybe around like Sapelo Island towards Darien, but still a high chance of some pockets of heavy rain, and we'll see the wind gusts start to pick up. So that's kind of the very latest that we have here weather-wise. I mentioned it's a nowcasting thing. We're going to get our DOT cameras fired up across the inland areas and rural portions of southeast Georgia. We showed you Hardeeville, downtown Savannah, Tybee Island. We're going to take a trip all across the area, so make sure to stay with our coverage. And we have our weather team, Jonathan, Catherine this morning, and also Jada. Victoria is here with me this afternoon. We want to see your reports and photos so we can share them right here during our coverage of Idalia. Back to you.
Jeremy, thanks a lot. You know, some of the things that he mentioned certainly is that you got to feel for our communities and our neighbors west of 95. Like Andy was just driving through Statesboro, and that's where Jeremy was forecasting that the storm is really going to start picking up and targeting that area.
And speaking of Andy, let's go to Andy Cole right now. Andy, where are you?
Hey, good afternoon, Shannon and Greg. We are here on the way to Reedsville. We're probably in between Statesboro and Metter at this point. I told you the last time we checked in, I told you the last time we checked in that there was light.
This is the all-new Tempur-Pedic Breeze mattress, and it's designed to help you feel cool. So no more sweating all night, no kicking off the covers, or blasting the air conditioning. Because only the Tempur-Pedic Breeze is made with our one-of-a-kind cooling technology that pulls heat away from your body. So the mattress feels up to 10 degrees cooler all night long. Don't miss our biggest sale of the year with savings up to $700 on select adjustable mattress sets and experience the deep, undisturbed rest of Tempur-Pedic. Learn more at TempurPedic.com.
You're ready for your comeback, earning your degree online. You've got the drive, the determined, and nothing can stop you, not even a little mummy. Purdue's online university for working adults. Apply now at purdueglobal.edu.
Breaking overnight, a Lamborghini dealership is a crime scene right now.
Police say the thieves just took off.
These crimes could pop up anytime.
Driver loses control.
Can see here the destructive path.
Obviously, it's a very unsettling situation for in that neighborhood.
When I think of Citizen versus Con, I worry.
Some criminals aren't the brightest.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
As for a motive, we still don't know.
Crimes, Cons, and Capers, a new season. Only on Very Local.
Not raining at all to being a quick little downpour. But of course, we're going to monitor that throughout the evening and just check back in. Shannon, Greg, back over to you.
Blackstone reporting live along River Street. Should also point out, folks, that we're hearing that the President Joe Biden is going to take to the microphone, talk about this storm, the preparations from FEMA. We're waiting for that to happen in about 20 minutes.
Yes, all right. But right now, before that, let's head over to Tybee Island, where I'm sure the conditions are a lot worse. That's where we find our Nakaya Carrero right now. Nakaya, what can you tell us? Yeah, I see the wind.
Yeah, the wind is blowing. That's right, Shannon. We actually, drove through Highway 80 and we saw a flag just whipping through the wind, but we didn't realize how strong this wind was until we actually got on the beach. Now, as you can see behind me, the waves are just crashing into the shore, and we're actually seeing people out here venturing out before Idalia makes its way to Tybee Island, but the effects are already being felt. Now, I do want to tell you, the city of Tybee Island's Mayor Shirley Sessions said on Facebook in a statement a few days ago that there will be no staffing on the beach. So she also said if you are out here and you do venture out here to see what these conditions are like, you are out here at your own risk. But she does emphasize to be safe. Another thing that people worry about being out here on the island during storms is flooding and Highway 80 possibly being closed down, but Chatham County Police will be monitoring that as we go throughout the day. Of course, the pier is closed, so if you are trying to come out here to the beach, the pier is closed. The only thing up there right now are some birds huddled together. Of course, Shannon and Greg, we will remain out here throughout the day into the evening to bring you continuous coverage. Back to you.
Nakai Guerrero reporting live. And the wind that you mentioned as we're looking at Nakai's hair in the wind there, Jeremy had talked about that. The wind gusts were 36 miles per hour.
Yes, most definitely. And you see those people out there on the beach. I know a lot of people are curious. They want to see what it's like during a storm. And we have that every single year that we have a hurricane or a tropical storm. But you definitely do not want to do that. You can get swept away in an instant. Same thing in a car. You're driving through. Jeremy always says, turn around, do not drown. And right now we want to toss it over to Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson right now.
All right, I have a lot of our cameras pulled up, so if there we go, we'll take a look outside from the top of the Harbortown Lighthouse. And again, the lighthouse area, Harbortown, Caligny Beach, you should not be seeing the peak wind gusts yet. That's very late this afternoon into the evening for the low country. So we need to wait for Idalia to make its trip across southeast Georgia a little bit closer. But you can see these ripples right here, and I believe that sort of the winds are just pushing their way across the Calabogie Sound. Really no big whitecaps out there right now. From time to time, we've seen some rain this afternoon. I'm very happy at the top of the Harbortown Lighthouse. They took the U.S. flags down. Oftentimes, if those get left up during a storm, they can be kind of torn and tattered, and we want to protect those. Off in the distance there, those darker skies, and we do have some rain across the area. We will continue to be updating you on the peak wind gusts across our area. Remember, our forecast is wind gusts 50 to 60 miles per hour. And there's still an outside chance there could be a gust of 65 or 70. We are really forecasting strong tropical force conditions across our area. Winds picking up there. It is 36 on Tybee Island, 43 for Waycross. That's the highest gust so far in Hazelhurst that we've seen today at 43. But that's the center of circulation down there just around the Bacon and Pierce County area. So your winds, as that moves right overhead, could actually diminish a little bit, and then they'll ramp up as that low tracks to the north and east. Nakia was out on Tybee Island. This is a little more aerial projection here. The camera getting shaken around as those winds about 30 to 40 miles per hour on the beach currently. Here is that area of low pressure. We had some heavy pockets of rain move through Chatham County, Bryan County earlier. Bit of a lull. There is a little bit of dry air that starts to wrap into the system. And the good news right now, we also do not have any tornado warnings for coastal Georgia or the low country. Oftentimes, those are contained within these feeder bands, so we may start to see that threat shift a little bit farther north by this afternoon. The tornado watch for southeast Georgia has been trimmed a little bit for our southern tier areas. It's mainly in and around Savannah into the low country that continues through this afternoon. Heaviest rain right now inland. Those flash flood warnings, they will continue to get extended. They're the areas shaded within green here. So if you're in the flash flood warning, please do not venture out. Don't try to drive through flooded roadways. You don't know how deep it is. You don't know if underneath the roadway that the pavement has been washed out. Oftentimes that happens with fast-moving water. It can really chew into the belly of the roadway, and then that washes out from the bottom up. So we'll watch the heavy flooding threat for inland locations, and so far, just those spotty showers working their way in from the waters. Hardyville right now, your live look, and we're going to continue to show all of our live cameras. If anyone back in the control room has a DOT camera ready to go, we're looking for the DOT cameras. Please pick something well inland. If there's one around like Hazelhurst, Idalia, that would be perfect. Winds are picking up just a little bit now into the Hardyville area. The pavement is wet along Highway 278. Something we like to see when we have tropical systems move in is people just kind of hanging out at home. Not a lot of traffic here. Pretty quiet on 278, normally one of the busiest roads there into Beaufort County. Beaufort Memorial Hospital camera right now. I believe it's a little bit fogged up. There's also some rain there. And off in the distance here, typically you can see the bridge very easily. We'll hopefully see that camera clear up just a little bit. Tough to see much with that. Tornado watch through this afternoon into this evening. I do think this will be canceled a bit early. If you've not seen a lot of wind yet in your area, you shouldn't, because we're waiting for those winds to ramp up this afternoon. Probably about 3 to 7 p.m. would be peak winds for a lot of our area. In downtown Savannah right now, just taking that live look out there, pretty quiet. Not really seeing anyone here near the Weston, just checking things out. And the impacts for our area, a lot of locations have already picked up inches of rain in Victoria. Coming up here in just a little bit, we have our team weather coverage. We'll be showing you some of the rainfall totals across the area. I know one of the totals we saw just swelled over 5 inches in the Alma area. Wind gusts, most areas we are looking at winds 50 to 60 for the peak. Sort of the outside chance that there could be a gust around 70 far south and coastline, but we're really thinking 50 to 60 most areas. Coastal flooding during high tide this evening, still watching that, and I mentioned we still have that tornado watch in effect. So Hurricane Idalia, there it is. The 1 p.m. advisory has winds at 80 miles per hour. So that's why we're thinking probably not going to see a lot of winds of 70 or higher with this, because the winds continue to drop down. Tracking now to the north-northeast at 20 miles per hour. This is not going to be hanging around for very long this afternoon, mainly early evening, and then it is out of here by tomorrow morning, already passing by Myrtle Beach and then headed off the coast of North Carolina. So that's kind of the latest that we have with Idalia, and I can promise you we'll be bringing you more live looks outside, because it's all about the impacts which are over our area right now. We want to show you the visuals of what's going on outside our weather windows across the area. Back to you.
Thanks a lot. Good to know that there's no tornado warnings for the low country, but certainly the community and the leaders out there as Beaufort County. A travel advisory, state of emergency declared, emergency shelters opening in Jasper County.
And, you know, he talked about the wind. We don't feel it exactly right now, but he said it's going to ramp up a bit later. And Georgia Power says because of that wind, they are expecting a lot of power outages. I know with Matthew, there were thousands of power outages. They even got teams to come in to help with that. But with power outages, you definitely need to have that emergency kit ready. You want to have your extra batteries. You want to have your water. You want to have your battery-powered radio so that you can continue to tune in and find out what's going on. They also say that if the power goes out, you definitely don't want to lose any of that food. Keep your refrigerator and your freezer cold. It will stay cold for about 12 hours or so.
And now's a good time, if you have power, now's a good time to plug in your phones. Just keep them plugged in, because you never know if power goes out. And as I think the mayor said, if power goes out in this area, it's going to be a couple of days before the crews might be able to get to you and then restore the power, either down power line or damage to a transformer or something like that.
Yeah, definitely while it's not too bad out right now. We hear the rain coming down pretty hard on the studio, but for the most part, if you do need to venture out to get some of these items to remain safe, you definitely want to do it now and get yourself back in.
And of course, this storm really is having an impact all across our area, particularly the low country, where we find WJCL 22 News' Riley Miller.
She tells us that road conditions there are getting worse.
I'm Riley Miller here in the low country, where you can see behind me some wet conditions. And if you look over my shoulder, you'll see the Hilton Head Island Bridge. Now, town leaders want you to know if wind gusts reach 35 miles per hour or greater, stay off the bridge. It's not safe to drive on at that point. Now, as far as closing the bridge, that's up to the South Carolina Department of Transportation. They'll be the ones to make that call. Of course, we'll let you know if anything changes there. As of this afternoon, both the town of Hilton Head Island and Beaufort County have issued states of emergency. So they want you to know, if you can stay home, simply stay home. It is not safe to be out in these conditions. Of course, we'll keep you updated both on air and online. For now, on Hilton Head Island, I'm Riley Miller. Back to you in the studio.
Riley Miller reporting about the roads conditions are bound to get worse. Jeremy was talking about it in Tybee Island, that the conditions were getting up to 40 miles an hour with the wind gusts. Looking at the camera there, it was hard to see anything really there because of the rain and the wind coming on our Tybee Island camera.
Yes, and the condensation from all of the heat out there. We checked in a little bit earlier with Nakaya Carrera. We want to check back in with her again. We saw those people behind you earlier checking out the water with all those white caps out there. You have an interview with one of them? Find out what they're doing out there at this hour.
I do, Shannon. Actually, you know, since we've been out here, it seems like people are coming and going. That wind is blowing, but we have someone here with us who actually calls the island home. Todd, you've lived out here for a few weeks and you've actually been out here for a few hours. Can you tell us, you know, the reason you decided to venture out from your house to the beach?
Oh, I just love swimming. I love the ocean. This is my home away from home here. I just love being out here. I love the sand between my toes. It's just great. It's just great. I love swimming out here. I was swimming out here already today. It's great.
Do the conditions at all concern you?
Not really. From what I've been seeing, it's kind of moved inland. I think this is probably the worst of it. At least it seems like that. But I mean, it's a lot worse than it was yesterday. But it's still beautiful out here. It really is.
If you were to advise, I think, the mayor did say she's not advising people to come out here, but if they do, what would you say to them?
Just stay close to shore. Don't go any further than thigh deep. Just enjoy the water. I mean, the water is still so warm. And just mind where you are, mind your feet, and don't go too deep. That's it. I mean, just don't let that tide take you out.
Thank you, Todd, so much. Stay safe. Now, Shannon and Greg, you guys are talking about that wind, but since we've been out here, that wind has been blowing, but then now those wind gusts, they just come in and about to blow me and Dan, the cameraman, over, but we definitely are going to be out here. We're going to remain out here. We're going to try to talk to some more people, but like we've been emphasizing, there is no lifeguards out here. There's no emergency crews out here, so if you are coming out here, the mayor, city officials are advising you to come out here at your own risk. These waves, as you can see, they're really strong. And like Todd was saying, if you do come out here, you're going to want to stay close to the shore because those white caps just show you how heavy this wind is and how strong those waves are. Of course, we're going to stay out here. Back to you guys in studio.
Okay, Natalia Carrero reporting live from Tybee Island. If the mayor tells me I'm at my own risk, I'm on my own. Yeah. They're not liable.
I mean, you can be.
I don't want to go there.
You can be the greatest swimmer and still find yourself in trouble. So you definitely want to stay far away from Tybee Island right now.
And one of the things that's fascinating, you and I have covered these storms before out in the field. And when our crews talk about the wind, that wind can literally just move you.
Exactly.
If you're standing here, you have your those of you who play in athletics, you have that great position. Your feet are centered, and the wind just says, "No, I want to move you 3 feet over here." It just does.
Yes. I mean, if it can move over a car or a building,
yes,
then it can definitely move over a human being.
Exactly.
So stay inside. All right, let's go to the newsroom right now with our Brooke Butler. Or maybe not. Maybe Andy Cole?
Hey, Shannon, you got me? Hey, Shannon, you got me?
Yes, we can hear you. Where are you now?
Awesome. So we are in Register. As I said, we are on our way to Reidsville right now. The rain has certainly picked up here, but let me tell you, granted, these are back roads, but we have not seen but maybe a handful of cars on the road. People are clearly heeding these warnings. Actually, we're going over some water on the road, a little bit of water on the road right now. But people are heeding these warnings and trying to stay safe. We are on the way to Reidsville because our meteorologists expect that we will likely hit the edge of the eye wall. Declan, we'll continue to go straight through here. We will anticipate that we will hit the eye wall of Idalia here in Reidsville. We are on the way right now, not seeing many people on the roads, but what we are seeing is heavy rain and a little bit of water pooling up on these back roads.
I know just a few minutes ago, the rain was coming down pretty hard, and now I see the wipers going, but it doesn't seem to be coming down that badly right now. Is that the case?
That's definitely the case, Shannon. It was definitely coming down a lot heavier. Actually, my photographer, Declan, who's behind the wheel right now, actually turned our windshield wipers down. But, just as you said that, we're actually probably going to be turning them up again because it has started to increase. We're passing now some farmland here, as I mentioned earlier in our shows and our coverage today. Bullitt County and the surrounding areas are agricultural meccas. That's a lot of what happens around this area. That's big industry around here. And so a lot of these farmers are hunkered down, staying safe, keeping their crops safe, keeping their animals safe, and of course, keeping their families safe.
And that's a sad thing. I know in previous storms, those farmers lost a lot of crops due to the heavy winds and the heavy rain as well. So hopefully that will not be the case, but I'm not sure at this point. All right, Andy Cole, thank you so very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And certainly we can hear the bands of rain just over our head.
Yeah.
They come and they go, just where he was in Reidsville.
Coming down hard right now. So if you don't have to venture out, please stay indoors and keep it tuned to WJCL. I think right now we want to head into the newsroom with our Brooke Butler.
area continues to brace for the impacts from Idalia. Many cities and towns have declared local states of emergencies, and that includes Rincon. The mayor actually declared a local state of emergency there at around 11 this morning. And the interesting thing with this one is they also issued a curfew. That curfew goes into effect at around 7 this evening. And the goal with that curfew is really just to keep everyone inside, off the roads, to keep everyone safe. And Rincon also wants everyone to know that there is a shelter open at Panora Baptist Church. Shannon and Greg.
Of course, the city of Savannah was considering implementing, Brooke, a curfew at some point. Obviously, that didn't happen, but Rincon has done it. And certainly there are shelters opening up all across our area as the storm is really starting to take effect here. As we're waiting right now, again, for the President of the United States to take to the microphone.
Again, and they can reset. I mean, things can change for the worse, and they can make another decision to decide to issue a curfew. But right now, that is not the case. I know they shut down the Talmadge Bridge. But driving in, did you notice all the restaurants, McDonald's, KFC, all of those places were open? I saw people in line getting food as if it were just another day.
And of course, you know that can change at any minute.
Yeah.
With Jeremy's forecast, as a lot of people are watching. Hope you've downloaded the WJCL 22 News app so that you can get up-to-the-minute details about this storm.
All right, Jeremy, what is the latest? What are you seeing?
Okay, let's kind of take a look here at some of the visuals at our coastline. We were talking with Andy Cole, who is headed to the Reedsville area. We'll take a look outside our weather window now. This is the Harbortown Lighthouse looking across the Calabogie Sound. You can see the wind sort of just pushing its way. It's an easterly wind, so winds maybe ramping up, pushing their way towards like Tefusky Island across the Calabogie Sound. You can see those ripples out there. The winds will not be their highest in the low country until, I would say, maybe 5 to 7 p.m., somewhere in that time frame. Out on Tybee Island, starting to see things ramp up just a little bit here. Very rough surf out there. We saw 1 or 2 people during Nikaya Carrero's live shot a little bit earlier on the beach, but certainly not a place you want to be today. We'll show you the visuals of it, and you can just stay in your home. But look at this right here. You can almost see some of either the foam or water just kind of being pushed by the wind here on the beach. Winds are really starting to ramp up now on Tybee Island. We saw the wind out there earlier closer to 40 miles per hour, maybe not as high as the last reported gust, 31. 44 down in Waycross and also Hazelhurst. Wind gusts in a lot of locations will peak around 50 to upwards of 60 miles per hour as we go through this afternoon. And the storm really ramping up in terms of rainfall for areas to the west of I-95. Look at that swath of rain right now. The center of circulation, pretty well-defined eye feature here, at least on the radar. That's the center of Idalia, and a drier punch of air has turned not the rain completely off, but a lot more spotty / isolated towards our coastline east of I-95. If you're in that inland area, though, you could pick up just a tremendous amount of rain. These outlying areas have flash flood warnings in place. That does include our friends in Bacon, Appling, Jeff Davis, Montgomery Toombs, and this will probably get expanded into portions of Tattnall, Evans, and also Candler County a little bit farther down the road. So that's where the heaviest rain is. We have these kind of like tropical spotty downpours right now. Chatham County into Jasper and Beaufort counties. You could quickly pick up maybe 1 or 2 tenths of an inch of rain, but these aren't going to last very long. It's the swath of rain to the west of 95 that's definitely a little more concerning. Tornado watch is still in effect. We've seen this slowly trimmed away. Southern tier counties are out of it. Montgomery and Toombs, you no longer are in the tornado watch, and the threat later this afternoon will start decreasing for the remainder of southeast Georgia and the low country. Let's go back into the low country right now. Hardyville, the wind there, really not too bad at the moment. Your winds will peak later this afternoon into the evening hours. And Beaufort Memorial camera right now, you can kind of see through this little foggy, wet lens right now, some of the water out there. We will be able to see this. There's a tree right by the camera here at Beaufort Memorial Hospital, and that'll probably be shaking around once we get to later this afternoon. So that's kind of the visuals outside. Let's talk more about coastal flooding and some impacts and rain totals for the storm so far with meteorologist Victoria Coquinos.
Some areas have higher rain totals, especially where that eye wall is, and most of this rain, the heaviest rain, will stick west of I-95. Just as Jeremy was saying, we do have some tropical downpours moving on shore. That's east of I-95, and that could pile up quickly, but we're really focusing towards our inland areas. So let's go over some rain totals. Now, this is so far this afternoon. So Alma, where that eye wall has moved through, the heaviest part of the rain at 5.53 inches so far, about 5.5 through about, we'll say 2 p.m. Statesboro about 2.64, Idalia 2.21, here in Savannah just about 1.5 inches. So these will continue to go up as we head through the afternoon. But again, most of the heavier rain will stick west of I-95 as we go throughout the evening for tonight, as that center does make its way through. We do have those flash flood warnings in place as well for our southern tier counties. That's something to keep an eye on. If you have to head out the door this evening, watch for flooding for all of us, especially again west of I-95. Now we do have that threat for coastal flooding later on this evening. Earlier today, this morning around 9 a.m., we had a high tide of 9.0 feet. Now later on for tonight, that's the high tide we're really watching as Idalia makes its way through. We also have that supermoon. Now that's at 9 p.m. this evening on Fort Pulaski. The forecast high tide is 10.3 feet. That's moderate flooding at 10 feet, and we know Highway 80 closes around 10 feet as well. So if you do live on Tybee Island, hunker down. We do have that forecast that will close Highway 80 to get on and off the island. But again, that's if this does verify later on for tonight. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. The high tide this morning was above what was forecasted. Good news as we move towards Thursday, there is no threat for any flooding. This will finally start to clear out later on this evening, especially with the rain, and then the winds will begin to die down as well. There's a storm surge warning in place that's mainly for coastal Chatham County, stretching all the way up towards coastal Beaufort County. 2 to 4 feet is what we're watching for the moment. Now there's a watch in place, storm surge watch. That means conditions are possible for storm surge. Coastal Bryan, Liberty, and McIntosh County, that does stretch down towards St. Simons as well. That's that lighter purple. Same story though, 2.4 feet are possible. So again, the storm surge threat is in place for coastal Chatham up towards Beaufort County. The coastal flooding tonight could reach 10.3 feet, and Highway 80 could potentially be closed. So we'll keep an eye on that. That does verify as Idalia makes its way through with the winds, and also we have that supermoon in place. Greg, Shannon?
Like all the natural factors of nature there are looking for that this storm is certainly not over yet, as we're hearing the bands of rain just keep coming and going. As I was saying to you earlier, I was walking my dog before being told that we had to come to work to pass the baton, and it was amazing. Walking him, it was dry, then the next thing you know, we were in the middle of a downpour. Yeah. And the next thing you know, it was light rain, which seems to be the order of the day. We even talked to Andy, same thing, when he's driving out to Reedsville from Statesboro. A lot of rain, no rain, then heavy rain.
Same thing with the drive-in. I had the windshield wipers on at one point, barely going, and then I had to turn them up. And so you can't take this storm lightly. And our city, state, federal leaders are not doing that. We're going to hear from President Joe Biden at about 2:15 this afternoon. We're also going to hear from South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster at about 2 o'clock. We will take those press conferences live as they happen. Is that correct? Can anybody tell me that? Okay, we're going to take those press conferences live as they happen.
Because there's a lot of communities in the low country that have already declared a state of emergency. So they're getting ready for that. So we're interested to find out exactly what the governor has to say in terms of resources, FEMA, help for people who may have lost power.
Yeah, I understand that FEMA, the American Red Cross, and the Army Corps of Engineers are all ready to go just in case. Right now, we want to continue our team coverage.
Let's keep it in the low country since that's what we're talking about. We're going to go to WJCL 22 News as Kyra DeVoe shows us the conditions in the low country.
Hey, I'm Kyra DeVoe. I am here at the Target in Bluffton. I just want to show you what we are seeing as we go around the low country this morning. Now, I just want to start with the parking lot. This is the Target parking lot, which was packed last night and it's clearly empty. Now, what we're seeing in Bluffton is just off and on heavy showers. They come on for about a few minutes and they're off again. But let me show you this actual Target right here. This Target closed down. You see they boarded up with this heavy metal to block their product and their material. Now, they closed at 11 a.m. When I went in there this morning, there were not much bread or not much food that people can grab to use in case their power goes out, but they were stocked with their team members coming out of the back, making sure they were replenishing as much as they needed. So we're going to keep going around the Low Country, Bluffton, Hilton Head, and probably Beaufort to show you guys what we're seeing. But for now, I'm going to send it back to you in the studio.
Kevin reporting live there from Bluffton.
And Target, and you see that they have definitely boarded up their building there. And that's what we saw too after Matthew hit. The next storm, everyone, you could see them with the plywood boarding up their windows, boarding up the doors to make sure that they stay safe. But then attitudes kind of changed because we had some storms to come in here that really weren't too bad. And so I think that's what a lot of people are thinking about this one, that it may not be too bad. And that's what we're hoping for, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea of how serious some people are taking it, we're just looking at our emails as we're monitoring this situation. The Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort entered a tropical cyclone condition 1 caution when they say there were destructive winds with sustained winds of 58 miles per hour or greater. So even the military is not playing around with this storm, and neither should we, and neither should you.
No, and ABC News is covering this storm as well. I think we have a story from them.
Today, Hurricane Idalia making landfall in Florida's Big Bend as an extremely dangerous Category 3 storm, downgrading from a short-lived Category 4 according to the National Weather Service. The storm making a direct hit near Keaton Beach.
Oh my goodness.
In the Tampa Bay area, streets flooded. Idalia bringing life-threatening storm surge and knocking out power for hundreds of thousands of customers.
The eye of Hurricane Idalia has left the state of Florida. The state is still being impacted by the storm's bands, and we're seeing that particularly in the northern part of the state.
The National Weather Service calling Idalia an unprecedented event.
No!
Since no major hurricanes on record have ever passed through the region.
My house is down in Keaton. I don't know if it's there or not. We've never seen this before. Category 1 has scared us, man. I mean, this right here is bad.
At least 30 Florida counties placed under mandatory evacuation orders. Idalia large enough to be seen from space. Experts say human-driven climate change has caused ocean temperatures to rise, which supercharges tropical systems.
It's 88, 89 degrees over where the storm's going to be tracking, so that's effectively rocket fuel for the storms.
Tampa Electric says tens of thousands of workers from more than 20 states from as far away as Maine are standing by to help restore power after the storm passes. The governor says search and rescue will start as soon as the storm subsides. 8 teams are standing by with 5,500 National Guardsmen also ready to be deployed. Emlyn, ABC News, Tampa.
And of course, close to home right now, make sure that you download the WJCL 22 News app for all the local updates on the storm. It is amazing that Florida, as the ABC reporter just said, has even activated the National Guard. Just gives you an idea of how severe the folks in Florida are taking it as it just came up Tampa.
But should make you feel a little more safe and secure that thousands of people are on standby waiting to come in and to help if need be. Let's go back out to Tybee Island now with WJCL 22 News' Nakaya Carrero. Nakaya, what can you tell us?
I was out on the beach. We've actually had to move more up higher ground because that rain is starting to come in. Those wind gusts are picking up. Let's give you a little look at what we're seeing. Those waves are a lot heavier than the last time you checked in with us. And when that wind comes in, the sand is just blowing across the beach. I actually lost my hat at one point and had to run and grab it. But it just gives you an idea of what we're feeling as the time goes by. You know, when we checked in at first, it was windy, there was people out on the beach, but that beach has now cleared. We're actually seeing people walk off the beach. And like we said, you know, we keep reminding people at home, the mayor, city officials are advising you to come. If you do come, it's at your own risk because there are no emergency crews out here. But as conditions worsen, you may want to stay indoors. Now, people are still coming out here to the beach, trying to see what the conditions are like, but as you can see, the rain is coming in and that is just adding a different layer to the environment out here. Of course, we will continue to check in throughout the day. Greg and Shannon.
You know, it's so interesting. You get an idea of how bad the rain is as the photographer is using a towel of some type to wipe it down, because if he doesn't, in a few minutes, you can hardly see Nakaya there. I just asked Jeremy, and we were talking just a few minutes ago. He's busy at the computer getting the latest numbers, but he was saying that the wind gusts up there were up to 36 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's why it was so surprising to see that line of people waiting to get past Nakaya to get to the beach. Nakaya says she had to move away from the beach because the water is getting really rough right now, but they're heading towards the water, something you definitely don't want to do. They said there are no lifeguards out there, so you're entering at your own risk. They probably at some point will shut down Highway 80 there, because once the water rises up enough, it's going to cross that road, and there's only one way in, one way out to Tybee, so you want to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's something that Victoria Kokinos, a meteorologist, was saying, that the storm surge that's expected to come later this evening is going to have an impact. So a lot of people, if they haven't left Tybee Island now, they might want to think about it because of the conditions. Across the way in the Low Country and in South Carolina, we're certainly waiting on Governor Henry McMaster to give a news conference at 2 o'clock. That's a look there at the podium where he's going to give an update on the conditions there, because there's a lot of communities in the Low Country. South Carolina have already declared a state of emergency. Some of them are already opening up shelters.
Yes, and we also want to remind you that at about 2:15 or so, President Joe Biden is supposed to address this storm as well, because everyone is taking this storm seriously, as you should as well. We are going to stay on air for as long as needed to keep you safe, to keep you aware of what's happening with Hurricane Idalia.
Yeah, and of course, if you have to step away from the television set, we understand that you do. Please make sure that you download the WJCL 22 News app. You can actually watch our broadcast live, and for whatever reason that you have to leave the television set, keep it with you, and you'll be able to check out the updates from our team of meteorologists that have been working since, 3 or 4 o'clock this morning?
Yes.
4 this morning. They've been burning, living off coffee, caffeine, chocolate, Diet Coke, whatever, but they've been keeping you updated on all the things that are happening.
I see Jeremy standing over there right now. I'm not sure if you have an update or something for us, Jeremy.
If we want to take a look at some live cameras until we get some of those news conferences ready to go, we definitely can do that, because I think it's all about the visuals right now. What we're experiencing from down near the Altamaha River all the way to Vidalia, Statesboro, Metter, then Pembroke, Richmond Hills, Savannah, Low Country, coastal communities. We want to keep everyone updated, and we have awesome visuals that we can show you. Let's head out to Tybee Island right now. Nakaya mentioned that what's happening is, as the winds are ramping up, it's almost sandblast effect out there, and it has to be pretty strong winds because they had some rain on Tybee earlier. You would think the sand would be wet, but that very surface layer, the winds are coming in off from the Atlantic, very rough surf out there. And then you can see this every once in a while blowing around. Down here near the dunes, the vegetation shaking around. We'll get to the wind gusts in just a moment. Now you go up the road north just a bit, the Calabogie Sound, your highest winds will probably be 5 p.m. through maybe 7 or 8 p.m. as we go into early this evening. Notice those darker skies out there. It looks like some rain off in the distance. You had some pockets of heavy downpours move through. The shower's a little more spotty right now near and east of I-95, but definitely not the case when you get farther inland. So the winds have just picked up in Darien. Tropical storm force there now at 45 miles per hour. 44 currently in Waycross. So we're going to start seeing this corridor of winds, 40s, probably 50s, maybe around 60 miles per hour spreading across the area. I believe that's one of the highest wind gusts we've had so far today in Savannah. 35 miles per hour, and we'll see those winds pick up on Hilton Head Island. Hopefully they'll check in just a bit. Storm Tracker Radar Network, the center of circulation is now past Valdosta. It's on the doorstep or right near Bacon and Pierce County. So yes, this is what you could call the eye of the hurricane. National Hurricane Center says it's still a hurricane. We think this will transition to a tropical storm. Most of our impacts will be tropical storm force conditions here for southeast Georgia and the Low Country. Something I want to show everyone right here, and is something you need to take seriously, and that is, hopefully we can call that up here. So those green areas right there, we want to get maybe just a little bit more information on those, and we can click on those. Montgomery Toombs, Jeff Davis, Bacon, and most of Appling County there. So let's just take a look at this one right here and talk about that. That is a flash flood warning. So what happens is these tropical deluge downpours, there's been 5 inches of rain in parts of these flash flood warnings. So you get a lot of runoff, a lot of standing water in the streets. Some of that runoff can move rapidly over the streets. You don't want to drive into that. And this warning goes until 7:15. So some of the cities around Lyons, Georgia. Also, if you're out in that area, Y101, our meteorologist Jonathan Myers, he did some updates on there. We do radio weather for them, so make sure to tune in there if you're on the go today. Toombs Central, Vidalia, you're included. This flash flood warning does impact nearly 35,000 people. Let's take a look here at the one for Appling County. We want to keep all viewers up to date. And a flash flood warning, you need to take precautions. Do not go into any flooded roadways. I would just hold out at home until you can at least get that wave of water past you that's pouring out of the sky. Baxley, Graham, Surrency, flash flood warning there is until 3 p.m. So we'll keep a close eye on that. About 5,000 people are impacted. Our friends right here in Jeff Davis County, Denton, Hazelhurst, flash flood warning also until the top of the hour. About 4,200 people impacted with that. Coastal communities, just spotty showers right now. That wave of rain is near and south of 16, about to enter Candler and Bullock County, and then push its way towards Screven and Effingham. Tornado watch continues. It's nice, so we've seen a bit of a lull in the tornado warnings we had across our area earlier on today. We'll continue to monitor our outdoor cameras. Hardyville right now, wind is about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Nothing too strong yet. You're going to see your conditions ramp up probably 5 to 7, 8 p.m. And the wet pavement out there on Highway 278, not a lot of people out. Beaufort Memorial camera at the moment. A tree that you can see through the foggy lens, shaking around just a little bit. Hopefully, maybe the wind can dry the camera off a bit and we'll get better visuals from our Beaufort Memorial Hospital camera. That's the very latest. We'll continue to do those live looks outside and kind of get some new data here on Idalia and check out what the Hurricane Center is having to say. Back to you.
Beaufort, Low Country, South Carolina. In fact, let's talk about the governor of South Carolina about to address the situation.
Let's listen in right now.
Okay, this is Josie McDaniel. Where's Holly? Holly Mae, glad to have you with us again. Chaplain John Denny.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon. If you're a praying person, please pray with me. Oh Lord, as the storm approaches, we ask that your hand of protection be upon South Carolina. Protect our citizens and watch over those who serve the state during and after the storm. Help people use sound and wise judgment in response to this storm. Help us to not be complacent. We praise you in this storm and ask for your mercy. May our citizens look after each other and keep one another safe. In your name I pray these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. Well, we have a lot of information for you, and I'll start just briefly. The storm is weakening as we know. It came into Florida. It was about 125 miles an hour. At noon, it was down to 90. Now, right now, as 2 o'clock, it's down to about 80 miles an hour. That's still hurricane strength, but it's not here in South Carolina yet. We don't know exactly when it's going to get here, and of course the winds will get here before the center of the storm gets here, but any time from about 6 o'clock on, everybody needs to really be on their guard, and they need to go ahead and prepare right now. This is not as bad as some that we've seen. We don't think it's going to be as destructive as some, but it is going to be destructive. It's going to cause, be high winds, be a lot of water, particularly, of course, in the low country. Estimates are that up around Myrtle Beach, from say maybe above Georgetown to Myrtle Beach, it might be 1, 2, maybe a few more feet, but down in Beaufort it might be higher than that, maybe up to 3 or more feet. And John Quagliarello will give us more details on that. Of course, it's changing. It may go up to 5 feet in the Beaufort. We just don't know. But we're hoping that it'll weaken as it goes across ground, which is what they usually do. There's going to be a lot of rain. There'll even be rain in the upstate. We're going to have flash flooding. And we again ask everybody to realize that these storms are dangerous. There'll be water on the roads. There'll be water that does not appear to be deep. Your car could get flooded out. There could be a hole in the road. It could be washed out. If you can't see the road, then don't ride on it. Be very careful. And stay inside. Tonight there'll be winds all over the state, particularly more in the coast up towards the Midlands. But a tree limb can come down and hit someone, and you could break bones, have concussions, even be paralyzed. There are horrible things that can happen when the wind blows the limbs down, throws trees over, and also there'll be power lines down. All the power companies are making preparations. They already have vehicles and people and equipment out, already pre-staged in order to restore power as quickly as possible, but we know we're going to lose some power. So that is the overview. We had a meeting this morning. We've been in telecommunication with the counties. Everybody's ready. Everybody's prepared. And of course, we're operating under an executive order, which I issued yesterday, that allows us to move people and equipment much more quickly. We are not going to have any evacuations. We're not going to have any closing of state agencies. I repeat again, this does not appear to be one that requires any evacuation orders or closing of state agencies, but the schools, some of the schools are closed, some of them are, and we urge them to try to get back, open back up as quickly as possible. The longer the schools are closed and the children can't go to school, then we know those are consequences for that as far as learning. I'd urge everybody, once again, get your information from official sources. There's always a lot of chatter in the social media. A lot of it is right. Most of it is probably wrong. But if you get your information from official sources, you'll be much better informed. So again, this is not something we haven't seen before. There may be newcomers to the state that have never seen a hurricane, never seen a flood. But those of us who've been here for a number of years have. And again, we've seen some bad ones. One of the worst was Hurricane Hazel back in the 50s. Another was, of course, Hugo in 1980-89. And that really hit us. This does not appear to be in that category at all. But it is still dangerous. And we are prepared. We have some shelters that have already opened up. We'll explain that more in a minute. Some are open now and more available to be open. And I'd advise everybody again and you we all ought to do this all the time. This gives us another opportunity to do it. Get all your papers, important papers together that you have to leave the house and can't come back. Get your pills, your prescriptions, your pets. Have a plan for all of that, and understand that you may be trying to get those things together when the power's out and you need to get out of the house. But until you have to get out, stay home. Stay home tonight. Don't go sightseeing to see what's happening. Don't go driving around. There's nothing good going to come from that. So we've been through this before. We've been through a lot worse than this one appears to be. So we are ready. Your team all across the state is ready, and we want everybody to be as ready and prepared. Don't panic, but be prepared and get your information from official sources. Director Stinson, Emergency Management Division.
Thank you, sir. Team South Carolina has had a lot of experience with preparing for, responding to, and recovering from hurricanes and tropical storms over the last few years, and that's probably our greatest strength that we have as a team. As the governor mentioned, he issued a state of emergency yesterday, which included activation of the State Emergency Operations Plan. Activation of that plan allows us to coordinate state resources more efficiently and operate under the emergency management framework that has worked well during many disasters, again, in the last several years. The State Emergency Operations Center here has also been activated and will be staffed 24 hours a day for the duration of this event to coordinate state response efforts. And current priorities here at the State Emergency Operations Center include support to counties, that's our primary mission, and contingency planning for possible transportation, additional sheltering, supply, and equipment missions. We started conducting county coordination calls Monday to share information and identify any issues. and we've had a robust logistics system to assist local authorities, and that system has been validated again extensively over the last several years. We've only received a few requests so far for support, and that includes sandbags and shelter management. And those have either been filled or are being filled. As the storm moves through South Carolina, residents should keep in mind a few key points. Some of them the governor's already mentioned. Stay tuned to local television and radio stations for emergency information. Heed warnings from local officials. Stay inside well-constructed buildings away from windows and doors. And then do not walk or drive through moving water, and never drive around or move barricades blocking a street. Finally, a reminder is this is not just a coastal event, but much of South Carolina is going to be affected by the impacts of this hurricane over the next 24 to 48 hours. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Secretary Christy Hall, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. The Department of Transportation, in cooperation with a lot of our local partners, have been conducting a lot of prep work over the last several days, cleaning of ditches, cleaning of pipes, just getting ready for the storm as it approaches the state. We've also surged additional resources into the projected areas of impact to be able to quickly respond and recover. That includes additional road crews to help clear any downed trees across the roadways, additional signal repair crews into the areas, SHEP, additional units to help motorists along our interstate routes to move through the area. We are ready to respond very quickly and produce a very effective recovery on the flip side. I would like to argue or emphasize the same points the governor mentioned as well, and that is if you don't need to be on the road, stay off of the highways. We do expect some flooding of the roads as the storm moves through the state, and then once we get into Thursday and the storm has exited the state, just be on the lookout. Be safe as you travel throughout the state, and watch out for not only the road crews that are working on the recovery, but all the other first responders. Governor, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Edwards.
Thank you, Governor. As has been shared by the Governor and Secretary Hall, we are expecting power outages due to the storm. Statewide, we anticipate that number could be around 200,000. Restoration efforts cannot begin until the winds have died down. So restoration efforts would begin once winds are consistently below 35 miles per hour. I would also point, just because of the timing of the storm, obviously the utility crews will be out there in daylight, but they cannot operate at night. Just a few reminders. As has been mentioned, you could encounter down power lines. If you do encounter a down power line, please report it to your utility, but stay away from any down power lines. And also, do as well, if you have an outage, don't just assume that your outage, the utility knows of it. Do report any outages, and if you have the ability to use, our utilities have apps, so if you have the ability to use an app, do report that outage. If you are a consumer that has medical needs and need consistent power, do locate to an area outside of the storm so that you can have consistent power service. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Leach.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Our mass care team and county partners have been working closely with counties being affected. We are working to anticipate the needs for shelters for our populations displaced by this event. Currently, South Carolina has one open shelter in Charleston County, 2 in Williamsburg County, and 1 in Jasper County. Likely, there will be additional shelters opening over the next 24 hours, so please check with your local...
All right, we have a tornado warning. I'm going to let Victoria slide this over, and then I'll hop back out there and take over. Okay, the tornado warning right here is right into the Bullitt County area. That's until 2:45. So we're going to do several things here. We'll be tracking this. Let's just go to the regular radar. And we have the warning right here within the red lines. It's a tornado warning until 2:45. So we've seen some of these potential for quick spin-up tornadoes, and now we have that for our friends into Bullock County. So it's something you need to take your tornado precautions right now. And I was looking at this, and this does include the Statesboro area. So parts of Statesboro under a tornado warning currently. And we go to the velocities here, and we'll be able to show you right where that is at in Bullock County, because we can indicate that spin with the radar, and then we'll do some storm tracking and let you know exactly what we're thinking. So this area right here doesn't really look like much, but that is where the rotation is at right now, tracking its way to a northwesterly direction. If you're right in Statesboro, part of you is included in that tornado warning, so we'll go back to the traditional radar. We'll also put the warnings on here right now, so if you're just tuning in, tornado warning, this goes until 2:45, so it's 2:22 right now, and it is a pretty quick mover, moving off to a northwesterly direction, and we'll get right down to street level so that we can show you some of the other little areas, maybe some streets that are right around that rotation. And we get a little bit closer in here. Looks like Beasley Road, Highway 24. It will be crossing over that. And that warning goes until 2:45. So a little bit closer in view right now, once again. And we'll put the velocity back on, and we'll show you kind of what we're thinking in terms of that rotation. So that's where it would be at right now. And that road off to the right-hand part of the screen here, looks like Clydo Road and off to the west. So rotation in this part of Bullock County. We're going to back the view out here just a little bit. We can do some additional storm tracks as well on this little tiny tornado warning that we have in the Bullock County area. If you're within these red lines, please be taking your tornado precautions right now. We can also go in here. Let's loop the radar to give everyone a good indication of where that's moving. So it's moving to a northwesterly direction, going to be coming very close to the Statesboro area. Victoria, what'd you say for movement on that right now? At 20? Yes. Okay, so we also have direct communication with the National Weather Service. So what we can do is if they happen to say, you know what, this isn't just radar indicated, this is actually a tornado on the ground, we can relay that information to you very quickly. So the pointer right here, if you're curious, that's the part of the storm that we're watching very closely, and that's sliding its way off to a northwesterly direction. I'm going to move this down just a little bit so that we can put a storm track on this. It's moving its way off to the northwest, right around 20 miles per hour. So that storm track right now, we will do the cone with that because this is a fairly confined area of rotation, about 25 miles per hour. And if this, around 20 miles per hour, and if it holds together, these are the communities within the path of it. Remember, rotation was right around that Clydo Road area, Aikens Mill, and Hope You Like It. Those are the locations right now. And also this is right on the edge of the Statesboro area. So a tornado warning, and this goes until 2:45 this afternoon. We will take a look here. Let me clear that out, and then hopefully we can get those warnings back up there for you, just give you a little more visual information. And remember, we have the tornado watch for our area, and that goes this evening until 10 p.m. So we have late afternoon, early evening time frame that we still have the threat of some quick spin-up tornadoes across the area. Want to keep every viewer in the loop, though, so we're going to go back to our home view here very quickly. Not only do we have the tornado warning there in Bullock County, we also have flash flood warnings ongoing. Center of circulation with Idalia's down there around Bacon and Pierce counties, still tracking its way to the north-northeast. And these feeder bands, or the thunderstorms rotating around this east to northeast side, are the ones that we still have to watch this afternoon for maybe a quick spin-up tornado. This one is tracking its way off to a northwesterly direction. So there's that tornado warning information. That goes until right around 2:45 this afternoon. That's the red shaded area. We'll zoom back in there in 1 second. And down here in the green is what we're looking at in terms of the torrential rain. Alma, you already had around 5 inches of rain. These are flash flood warnings. You don't want to go out and try to drive right now. Kind of some treacherous conditions, low-lying areas that are prone to street flooding. Lots of standing water in these locations, and that heavy swath of rain is going to continue to get tugged across these inland locations of coastal Georgia. We're going to head back down a little bit closer in. We'll take a detailed look, take an X-ray of this storm here that's around the Statesboro area that prompted the tornado warning. We'll move our map a little bit and give you that expert analysis from our team of meteorologists here at WJCL 22. So if you're in the Statesboro area, your part of the city right now is within the red lines. That's the location where potential tornado is located right now. And we'll take one of those X-rays of the storm. I think what we'll do this first time, let's take a look at the shear tracks. That usually paints the picture of where some of the rotation is at. And to me, it's not super strong, but it did pop something right there. So let's skip by that. We know sort of the general location. And there it is right in there. So there definitely is just a little bit of that rotation. So towards and away from the radar. So that indicates the circulation to us. And let's go down a little bit closer in. We're getting closer to some of the east side of the Statesboro area. And right there is Brooklet Leafield Road. Down there is Brooklet. Notice that little dot there. That's a lightning strike. We have Beasley Road over here. So Statesboro, Georgia Southern. This is tracking to the north and west. Should be crossing Highway 24. I would say almost any second because the radar information when it does a scan might take a minute or two to come in. We're watching the potential for a quick spin-up tornado crossing Highway 24. If you live in this area, please do not go outside. We don't want anyone venturing out there trying to find this tornado. Instead, you want to take shelter and protect you and your family. We'll zoom things out here a little bit. We'll put the traditional radar on for you and show you. Sometimes with these tropical spin-up tornadoes, a little more different than a true supercell tornado. And this is not the setup that we had. Remember back last year when we had the strongest tornado in the U.S. move across northern Bryan County. Kind of a totally different animal when you have these tropical systems that are making landfall and the potential for some of these quick spin-up tornadoes. So just looks like kind of an area of heavier rain, but this is moving its way off to the north and west. I want to go back in now and see if the velocity updated. We're going to watch the next scan because the reflectivity, kind of what you're used to seeing. Hey, where's the heavy rain? Where's the lighter rain just updated? And this is moving its way off to a northwesterly direction. If we have our camera in Statesboro available right now, I would love that we could maybe take a look outside the weather window there and just happen to see what the skies look like in and around the Statesboro area. That's our Tormenta camera in Statesboro. Right there is the circulation. Any new information coming in, Victoria?
They haven't said anything new for the moment, but like you were saying, as these tropical systems move through, we have these isolated quick spin-up tornadoes. So right now, they're continuing the warning until 15 more minutes, so 2:45. Definitely seeing some velocity on it, like you said, weakening just a little bit, but no updates so far from the National Weather Service.
Okay, and I would say with how quickly this is moving, we mentioned northwest around 20 miles per hour. I would say if they're going to issue another warning or think there is a potential for a tornado on the ground or the radar indicated tornado continues, they'll have to make a decision here in northern Bullitt County and potentially extend that tornado warning. So we should know very quickly. Tornado warning goes until 2:45 this afternoon. Let me just put that back up there. Much easier for someone, maybe if you're across the room. Okay, and what we'll take a look at right now, so there's the tornado warning. If you're within these red lines in Bullitt County, it does include parts of the Statesboro area. So I believe right now, okay, so Veterans Memorial Parkway in the Statesboro area. And what we would expect is, yeah, just some rain there right now. The little bit of rotation that we indicated on radar is a bit off to the east of there. So wet pavement right now. You're probably starting to feel the winds pick up in Bullitt County. Now the center of Idalia is still down to your south, so no tropical storm force winds really yet unless you're right within this thunderstorm. Obviously could be some stronger winds there, but a tornado warning until 2:45. We'll put this back into motion here, loop it just a little bit for you and give you an idea of where maybe some of the next stops are for this potentially dangerous thunderstorm in Bullitt County. Right in this area is where the rotation was indicated. And I think we need to go in there and maybe do a little x-ray of the storm once again. I would say the rotation is just a little bit weaker than what we saw potentially 5 minutes ago. It's just sort of off to the east-northeast of the Statesboro area. So I think we'll go back to the normal radar view. Okay, and someone just mentioned they have another view that we can take a look at in the Statesboro area. Hopefully, there it is. And that is, I'm kind of looking at the top of the screen there, State Route 73 at Jones Lane and Highway. Yeah, so State Route 46, Bullitt County / Register area. Stoplights down there on the bottom, those are definitely shaking around. Rain is coming down, and that rain intensity is going to continue to ramp up here. Not only as this thunderstorm moves through, but we also have just this wave of moisture associated with Idalia that is pushing its way off to the north and east. We can get a good view here. Let's see the warnings. Let's turn the warnings on. There's the tornado warning. Looks like they've trimmed that back edge, so it's just this little piece of the thunderstorm right now that we're seeing, probably the threat of a quick spin-up tornado. I love that we have our visual view of the Statesboro area right now, because you get a good idea down in that lower right-hand part of that live video that the stoplights are shaking around there, and also a lot of rain coming down. The cell that prompted this tornado warning originated in the central part of Bullitt County north of I-16, and now it's spinning its way off to the north and west. Hopefully it can kind of just mesh and weaken a little bit and just be a rainmaker for that northern part of the county. The warning itself goes until 2:45 this afternoon. So any additional updates from the National Weather Service?
Northwest at 20 miles per hour. They did trim it just a little bit north of Brooklet, but within this storm, they're saying too, there is a flood advisory in place. You can see that heavy rain coming down around it. Bullock has already, towards Statesboro, has already had about almost 4 inches of rain they're reporting. So there is a flood advisory in place. If you're not in this warning, still be aware as Idalia moves through. We're still seeing its impacts outside of a tornado.
Yeah, I did get a message on social media, someone saying, hey, is this it for the storm? Well, no, we're just sort of moving into this mid to late afternoon when the impacts would be ramping up across our area, especially in terms of wind. Inland areas well west of I-95, we have had flash flood warnings, so those locations are saying, hey, we've had too much rain, and now we have a tornado warning. Right here is Statesboro. We'll do a little x-ray of the storm once again and see if any of that little bit of rotation happened to show up once again. So I think it would be right in this vicinity. Notice how the colors are a little bit lighter here. Probably just to the north of Highway 25 and US Highway 80. So we're looking at this portion of Bullitt County just to the north of the Statesboro area. And we had that storm track on it earlier. It's going to run outside of this warning very quickly. Less than 10 minutes are left in the tornado warning. We can put our shear tracks on here, and that's kind of the footprint of rotation. And we did see a little bit of that earlier, and this is what prompted it. Barely a little kind of bluish dark speck there on the radar. That's where the radar was indicating that rotation, and that has weakened a little bit as it's moved off to the north and west. So it would not surprise me at all. Hopefully we'll get this canceled here shortly, and I think in the meantime, let's back our view out here because we're also tracking a tropical system across our area, and we'll loop the radar to give you the very latest on that. Coastal areas through I-95 right now, you don't really have a whole lot going on in terms of the heavy rain. These are just going to be occasional showers with embedded downpours, but we need to watch some of those that rotate in on this eastern side of Idalia have had a little bit of spin as they move inland, and that's what prompted that tornado warning. So if you're curious right now, just tuning in, we are on right now, not only tracking a tropical system, but also a tornado warning. That goes until 2:45, and it's embedded within this area of steady, if not pocket of heavy rain. Down here, I would say Evans County into Tattnall County, Claxton towards, let's say, the Reedsville area, probably some of the heaviest rain anywhere across southeast Georgia. And the center of circulation is starting to make its way from Elma and Blackshear and then into the Jessup area. So the tornado warning goes until 2:45, so we're coming up on 2:37, about 8 more minutes. Now, how about areas up to the north, like Beaufort, Jasper, and Hampton counties. Those areas, we have a tornado watch, and we think it may last a little bit longer there. It goes until 10 p.m. So when I say longer, we think the one down here is going to start trimming counties out of it. But if you're in the low country, the threat of a quick spin-up tornado is going to continue a little bit longer, so probably past 6 p.m. We'll have to watch that very closely. Coastal areas, you're starting to feel the winds pick up. The heaviest of the winds, or strongest, have not arrived yet. That's more after, I would say, 3, 4, maybe even 5 p.m. And the peak winds should be wrapping up by, I would say, 7, 8 for sure, 9 p.m. across our area. So we're sort of in the core of what would be the strongest winds, and definitely the heaviest of rains for inland areas occurring right now, Montgomery, Toombs, into Tattnall, Evans, Bullock, Candler counties, and a little brief potential spin-up tornado threat still exists there into Bullock County, and that's why the tornado warning was issued. We had that around 2:20 to 2:22 this afternoon, and we'll continue that for just under 7 minutes, and we can zoom in here once again, let all of our friends in that part of Bullock County know. And Victoria, if you happen to see any new updates, or if they even say that this is going to be canceled or expired here very soon, what we can do is probably continue with some of our tropical coverage.
Not said yet if they're canceling it, but it has weakened significantly looking at radar scope here in the Weather Center, but they are focusing right now mainly from the National Weather Service on rain totals that are moving in towards Tattnall County, Evans, and Bullock County for the moment. So I think that's their main focus as this tornado warning starts to run out.
Right, just this little piece of Bullock County, and then you see all these counties highlighted in green down here. Those are flash flood warnings. So there's just been a deluge of rain on this northwest side of Idalia. So of Idalia towards Lyons, down in the Hazelhurst area, Baxley, Reedsville, Claxton, soon to be Metter, those locations have had a good 1 to 2 inches or even upwards of 5 inches or more of rain. So once this tornado threat expires, take a look at this wave of rain that's going to come sweeping through the Statesboro area. Now, if you're I-95 towards the coastline, what we are watching closely is just some spotty showers. A tornado watch continues into this evening, and then winds starting to ramp up around that circulation. So these are more easterly winds. By tonight, as the low passes by, the winds are going to turn northwesterly across our area. So the tornado warning right now is for Bullock County. We're going to be wrapping that up here very soon, within about 5 minutes. And I definitely think, since they are not really discussing the northern part of the county, this will probably be allowed to expire.
Definitely. They haven't said anything else, so I assume they're letting it expire. They usually tell us if they're going to cancel it, expire it, or extend it. And since they're kind of focusing on the rain totals from Idalia right now, okay, so they said they are expiring the tornado warning for Bullock County.
Okay,
so about
good
5
news.
more minutes.
It looks like it is gone there, so I think what we will do is we can either go back to that press conference or continue with our coverage here in about another 2, 3, 4 minutes. That is going to be gone, and we'll put this into motion for you and show you sort of where the next stop is for some of the heaviest rain across coastal Georgia and the low country. And that is still for areas right here is I-95. We've definitely had some downpours for our coastline, low country, and down across coastal Georgia. But the focus now in terms of heavy rain is for these inland areas, and that's why we have the flash flood warnings. Now, if you're in Tattnall County, Candler County, or Bullock County, you might start to see some of these green lines, or Evans County in your vicinity, because that heavy rain is going to be expanding across the interior part of southeast Georgia as the storm lifts off to the north and east. A little drier punch of air, and that was something we highlighted. That's why we had trimmed down rainfall totals to maybe 1.5 inches to possibly as high is 3 inches for the coastal areas. The rain really starting to shut off there, and it's not going to ramp up. This is the heavy corridor of rain and is going to continue tracking its way off to the north and east. If we have those DOT cameras, the GDOT cameras in Bullock County, let's continue to take a look at those, because I want to show the visuals. Probably not going to have this tornado warning much longer, but let's show everyone what it looks like outside there. That would be fantastic if we can call those up. And in the meantime, while they're dialing those in, We'll zoom in here, and we're going to be with you with our Idalia coverage because we've had the tornado threat move through the Bullitt County area. And you can see where that darker red shade was. That's where there was a little bit of spin that prompted this tornado warning. That has now cruised its way off to the east and northeast of Statesboro, and now almost on the verge of exiting the tornado warning, and that will be paired up very well. Within about the next 2 minutes, these red lines that you see right here, those will all be going away, and all we'll be talking about then is more of the heavy rain with Idalia, and then we'll start to look at some of the winds. But certainly we'll just keep our eyes on this very closely as we go through the next couple minutes. And then farther out into the Atlantic, we have to look to see if there's any more of these feeder bands that are going to start rotating their way towards the coastline, because that may provide an additional threat of some storms that could have a little bit of rotation with those. Hey, in the control room, does anyone know if we have those GDOT cameras ready to go? That we're looking pretty awesome there, especially the one that had the stoplights with it. If we could get that one, because the winds are also starting to pick up through portions of Bullitt County. So if we don't, I guess we'll just continue to talk about this tornado warning until that expires in about the next 90 seconds, and then we can move on with our... Okay, in just a minute, I'll toss it back to Greg and Shannon, but 90 seconds, this tornado warning goes away. So I think what we'll do here in the meantime, let's expand our view out here and show everyone what it looks like with still a hurricane, but it is weakening pretty quickly. Huge swath of rain inland. Coastal areas, you've had that little drier punch of air move in. That's why some of the torrential downpours we had around this morning have not continued into this afternoon. So heavier rains inland, and the rain starting to at least become more spotty or widely scattered at the coastline. Center of circulation down here, I would say it's getting a little bit closer down to like Wayne County. Our friends down into the Pierce County area have also seen that push through. A visual outside right now at Tybee Island, and there it is. We're starting to see some of those winds ramp up, rough surf, and we'll get to our wind gusts coming up in just a couple minutes. I'll throw it back to you.
Okay, Jeremy, thanks a lot. We are going to go right now to President Biden. He's in Washington, D.C., discussing the federal response.
Let's listen in to him.
7:45 this morning as a Category 3 hurricane. And it's moved over land and is now shifted to Category 1, but it is still very dangerous with winds up to 75 miles an hour. And the impacts of this storm are being felt throughout the southeast, even as it moves up the eastern coast of the United States, affecting Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And we have to remain vigilant, and there's much more to do. I just came from the Oval Office where I met with the FEMA administrator, who's standing to my left here, and our federal response folks. And early Monday morning, long before the storm made landfall, I spoke with Governor DeSantis and approved an early request for emergency declaration to enable him to have the full support ahead of time to protect the people's lives in the state of Florida. We surged personnel to Florida to help the state move people quickly to safety and out of a danger zone, and to help the governor and his team to the greatest degree possible in advance of the hurricane's arrival. And I directed the FEMA to redeploy resources, including up to 1,500 personnel and 900 Coast Guard personnel throughout the southeast. I directed Administrator Criswell to stay in close touch with the governor. She was with me when I was speaking to him as well. And I guess he's maybe tired of hearing of both of us, but he seemed like he welcomed it. As a matter of fact, I've asked that she get on the plane and leave for Florida this afternoon. She'll meet with Governor DeSantis tomorrow and begin conducting the federal assessment at my direction. Federal teams on the ground are going to continue to work with the first responders in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina to get people to safety. You've all been reporting this. You've seen it on television. There are a number of rescues already taking place as I walked out of my office a moment ago to begin to recover from the impacts of this storm. I let each governor I spoke with know if there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support or what they need. I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around. historic floods. I mean, historic floods. More intense droughts. Extreme heat, significant wildfires have caused significant damage like we've never seen before, not only throughout the Hawaiian Islands in the United States, but in Canada and other parts of the world. We've never seen this much fire. And while we're dealing with this latest extreme weather event, I remain laser focused on recovering and rebuilding efforts in Maui. We were out there, and many of you were there as well. It's devastating what happened there. When I took office, I directed my team to raise our game in how we lead and coordinate our responses to natural disasters. And because I've been around a while and I've known how these function, to ensure we met people where they are, when they need our help the most. Because of the devastation of wildfires from California, New Mexico, Oregon, Washington State, Idaho, Louisiana, we've learned a heck of a lot. A lot of damage in the meantime, but we've learned a heck of a lot. And we're putting the lessons we've learned to work. In a few moments, I'm going to be with my entire cabinet in the next room over, who are leading the federal recovery and rebuilding efforts and report on their progress, providing urgently needed support to the people of Maui. If I can note for just parenthetically for just a moment, you know, when you have your home washed away, when you are a fire that's taken your home away, when your school has been destroyed and there's no way you can't send your kid to school, these are urgent needs. And no matter how bright, how informed, how wealthy, how poor they are, they just need reassurance. So how in God's name are I going to get through this? Well, Jill and I saw the devastation in Maui firsthand. And I want to thank Governor Josh Green, who's doing one hell of a job. Along with their congressional delegation, there's total unity out there. And for everything they're doing to support the recovery effort. I directed my team to do everything we can for as long as it takes to help Maui recover, rebuild in a way that respects and honors Hawaiian traditions and cultures and the needs of the local community. We're not going to turn this into a new land grab. We're not trying to see multi-million-dollar homes on the beach. We want to restore that part of the island like it was before, only better. To that end, when I was on the island last week, I appointed Bob Fenton, one of the nation's leading emergency managers, and I mean that's not hyperbole, who's been on the ground in Hawaii since before the fires erupted as our chief federal response coordinator to lead our long-term recovery on Maui. I've charged him with making sure the community has everything the federal government can offer to heal and build back better as fast as possible. You know, he'll be giving me a report virtually on Maui when I walk out of this room and go to the cabinet room where I'm meeting in just a few minutes. And as an example of our commitment, we're not only building back, but we're going to build back stronger and more resilient future, which means we need to be ready to withstand any challenge coming our way in rebuilding the way that Maui wants to rebuild, the nature of the rebuilding. Today, I'm announcing that $95 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law is on the way to Hawaii to harden the ground power, harden the grid we talk about. I know when we start talking about the grid, the average American out there thinks, what are we talking about? Well, the ability to transmit electricity. Well, let me tell you what it means. It means investments to make sure electricity can continue to reach homes, hospitals, water stations, even during intense storms and extreme weather. Funding will be used for stronger and better poles holding up the wires that transmit the electricity. It'll mean stronger material. It'll mean burying these lines that transmit the electricity underground. It's more expensive to do that, but where possible, we should put them underground. They're safest. It means clearing trees and brush around these wires. It's like the kindling is that exists out there. That's what it ends up being when one of those wires come down. And this funding is going to pay for installing technology like smart meters that can tell you where the problem actually is when the line goes down. That's part of the problem. A lot of these in other, not Hawaii's, Maui's not that big, but in parts of California, Oregon, and all these places where these fires were, where did the wire go down? We're going to be installing meters to let the person sitting back in the headquarters know, whoa, it went down at such and such a coordinates, such and such a pole. To enable emergency responders to more quickly identify which lines are damaged or down, so repairs can happen as quickly as possible and get the power back on and prevent damage from occurring. Anything else at our disposal. The Department of Energy, and the Secretary, we're going to be talking about this in a minute, accelerated the announcement of this funding to meet the moment. All this is going to help Maui and the entire state of Hawaii better withstand future disasters, because this is not going away. It's not like, well, these are the last disasters. We know this works, and I've watched some of you folks stand in front of me on television in dangerous circumstances reporting on this stuff. You know it. It's one thing to look at it on television and hear someone else report, but you're standing there and you're wondering, whoa, what's that behind me? You know, it makes a difference, you know, because we've done it before. Look, under the Obama-Biden administration, we invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the state of Florida, replacing wooden power poles and steel poles, and we buried these electric lines. Well, I wonder what would happen now if we hadn't done that. I'm not sure what, but the point is we did it. It helped them withstand and recover from disasters more quickly than they otherwise would have. So it works. It costs a lot of money, but it works. But it saves a lot of money long term. When Jill and I visited Maui last week, we saw firsthand the magnitude of the loss. Your lives have been dramatically changed. If anybody in Maui is listening, you've lost everything. I mean, they lost everything. And we're doing everything we can to move heaven and earth to help you recover, rebuild, and return to your lives. We've already have dedicated $24 million to removal of hazardous material left behind in the fire's wake. There's pollution that is in that material. A lot of that you just can't go in and take bulldozers and clear it all out. You got to take the bad stuff out. You got to take out the polluted, the dangerous stuff. And once we've done that, we'll be able to remove all the debris. But it's going to be frustrating as the devil for people. They say, why can't I go back? Storm's over. Why can't I go back and look and see if I can find that wedding ring, or why I can find that album? Can't find that thing that I've lost in the house. It's really tough. Really, really tough. I didn't do anything like that, but lightning struck my house. We had to be out of that house for about 7 months while it was repaired because so much damage was done to the house and half the house almost collapsed. You know, and you wonder what's going to happen. We've already dedicated $400 million to pay for the debris removal. Once we get the toxic stuff out, to take all the removal, and the federal government's going to pay for that. The state is not paying for that. And we're going to dedicate more if necessary. But I want to be clear with the people of Maui about what to expect. The work we're doing is going to take time, in some cases a long time. We're going to do it in a way to make sure we're respectful to the wishes and the traditions of the people of Hawaii as well. The process of removing hazardous material and cleaning the environmental damage means folks can't get back in the area right away. The start of school has been disrupted. It's painful. I get it. But what can I tell you? The one thing I can tell you is that we're going to be with you every step of the way. We're not walking away. When Jill and I visited, we were struck by the absolute courage of the people there. People who lost loved ones, lost everything. People are just trying to find out whether the ones they lost. Are they gone? Are they dead? Are they missing? Or are they just not accountable? Where are they? They've lost everything. Everywhere we turned, we saw and felt the aloha spirit. Neighbors helping neighbors. I mean, I know this sounds kind of corny, but it's true. It's true. Everybody's reaching out, trying to help the other guy. Turning pain into purpose and keeping the faith. I've directed my administration to continue working with urgency and focus to help the people of Maui on their journey of recovery and healing. And we're going to make sure you are healed and you're in better shape than before. I said when I was on the island last week, we're not leaving until the job's done. And we'll be there as long as it takes. I know there's a lot of questions you probably have. I'll take a few, but I have a cabinet meeting coming up right away. Yes.
Mr. President, can you assure Americans that the federal government is going to have the emergency funding that they need to get through this hurricane season?
The answer is, if I can't do that, I'm going to point out why. How can we not respond? My God, how can we not respond to these needs? And so I'm confident, even though there's a lot of talk from some of our friends up on the Hill about the cost, we got to do it. This is the United States of America. Yes.
Mr. President, Governor DeSantis is also running for president. You are running for re-election. Do you sense any politics in your conversations with him about this issue?
No, believe it or not, I know that sounds strange, especially how the nature of politics today. But, you know, I was down there when the last major storm. I spent a lot of time with him, walking from village to from community to community, making sure he had what he needed to get it done. I think he trusts my judgment and my desire to help, and I trust him to be able to suggest that this is not about politics, it's about taking care of the people of the state.
Mr. President, on the hurricane, in your conversations with the governors, is there anything that you've heard from them that gives you pause? Things that you think need to be there that are not quite there yet? And secondly, are you making any contingency plans on your own schedule, either with this Labor Day, with your own personal travels, and also for your international travels that are coming up next week? That are you going to need to reshuffle things?
Well, I may. I just don't know yet. And first of all, each of the governors seem to be focused. And I think what's changing, particularly the governors from North South Carolina as well as Georgia, is there wasn't an anticipation that it'd be moving up the coast. They were hopeful, and initially it looked like it was going to go further east and not affect them. So I think they're all in the process of rapidly focusing on what may happen, what may not happen, and what I hope the people of those states listen to is the warnings when they come from a lot of it, they may not see 130-mile-an-hour winds coming through, but guess what? You may also be on the shore in low-lying area and have a 8-foot surge of wind surge coming from off the ocean. But they've all been through it. The guy furthest north, Governor Cooper, is really focused on it. I mean, they all are. I don't mean to pick, but I mean, he is the least likely to have the most impact occurring on his shores. But it's a lot of low-lying country. I was joking with him. I mean, my state is, when you have anything like a hurricane in my state, in Delaware and suburban and the eastern shore of Maryland, we're 3 feet above sea level, man. You worry about what those surges do, and that's the same thing still happening in Florida, because you're talking about the high tide, low tide, adding 3 feet and so on. So I found them all to be laser focused on what their needs were, and I asked them, but I think they're reassured that we're going to be there for whatever they need, including search and rescue off the shore of the Coast Guard and Coast Guard helicopters and the like.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I have a question for you about, we talked a lot about power lines and having stronger poles. I was curious, some power companies have talked about potentially shutting off power when there's sort of high wind incidences for vast parts of the country. And I'm wondering if you think this is sort of an appropriate response by power companies, or if you think that they should be working to sort of harden their infrastructure more than just ending power when there's
I think both. Look, it's very expensive to secure these power lines. Both in terms of the actual structure, we look out there and you see these large towers carrying multiple wires, and the wires are like that thick, and they're carrying an awful lot of energy, and sometimes those entire towers come down. I am not expert enough to know when it's appropriate to shut down that line. And that's one of the reasons why I think having the technology to have these meters on each of these facilities tells you where the danger is. So I can picture. I'm getting beyond my expertise here, but
You're talking about huge numbers of Americans suddenly not having power because the company makes a determination that.
well, but by the way, we also know how many huge number of Americans have died, how many huge number of Americans have, for example, more forest has been burned to the ground since I've become, in the time I've been doing this, than the entire square miles of the state of Maryland. Imagine the entire state of Maryland burning to the ground. That's how much is already burned to the ground. So I think as we try to harden the capacity to transmit energy, it's not irrational to make a judgment that you may have to, in a certain circumstance, shut off the power. I just don't know enough to know the detail of how to do that. I mean, where that decision is made. That's why we're starting off. I was talking with Sherwood Ranch along these, so we know where. I just don't know enough to know that.
Mr. President, are you concerned at all that a potential government shutdown would impact the recovery efforts? And what is your reaction to House Republicans who say that they're urging an investigation into the federal response in Maui?
That was President Joe Biden addressing Hurricane Idalia. He said that the teams would remain vigilant. He has had a meeting with FEMA. He's talked to Governor DeSantis, Governor Kemp, to make sure that they know that help is available, and that includes the Coast Guard and power crews as well. They are mobilizing the support as we speak.
Also veered into talking about Maui.
Yeah.
For a while. Hurricane Idalia has made landfall in Florida as a Category 3 storm.
And the federal government is now preparing to help.
White House correspondent Kaylin Norwood is live at the White House with more of the response. We just heard the president talking about the response for people and communities where we are right now.
Greg and Shannon, as you heard, President Biden calling this storm very dangerous. And he said that he spoke with the governors from all the impacted states. That includes Governor Kemp, saying that the government is ready to supply the support that they need given this hurricane. He said that he also spoke with FEMA's administrator, Deanne Criswell. He just met with her. She was also in the briefing today talking about her meeting with the president, and they are ready to provide that aid. Now, this comes as the storm continues to work its way through the southeast part of the country, hitting Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. President Biden approved an emergency declaration for parts of Florida being hit by the storm earlier this week, and that allows FEMA to coordinate disaster relief efforts. And officials say that they are ready to help.
We have rapid assessment teams that have been pre-positioned, ready to go out as soon as it's safe to do so. And so those are personnel that will integrate in with the state personnel to go see what the damages are. But we also use technology.
FEMA says that they are most concerned about those who chose not to evacuate. FEMA's administrator is planning to travel to Florida to meet with Governor DeSantis tomorrow. Reporting live from the White House, Kaylin Norwood, WJCL 22 News.
Well, thanks so very much. We also want to talk about the news conference held by Governor Henry McMaster that we had to cut away from to go to Jeremy while he was talking about the tornado warning that was going through Bullitt County.
Yes, and Henry McMaster basically said that we are under a state of emergency, and that allows them to activate or execute emergency management plans to respond to any impacts that we may incur due to Hurricane Idalia. It also allows them the option to enforce a curfew. I know that they have some shelters open right now. Power crews are on standby. He also mentioned do not go out to sightsee. That's what people are doing. People are out and about right now, not taking this storm seriously.
Interesting. The governor said no evacuations. No evacuations, no closures. closing of state agencies. This is very important for those of you who are living in the low country as the storm is about to come through your area. Also talked about the fact that one of the state directors said the power outages in the state of South Carolina, the entire state, could reach 200,000 customers. And they're saying, look, once that happens, they can't get the power crews out there to repair any of the damaged lines because the storm is still there. And they can't work till night. They can't work at night, so it'll probably have to be in the morning. Another reason why folks should be charging up their phones and, of course, keeping it on our app, WJCL 22 News, to get the latest on the storm.
When we talked about this earlier, my mother sent me a text message when I was talking about power going out and you losing your food. She said that I did not mention to keep the refrigerator and the freezers closed. Keep them closed because they will stay cool for at least 12 hours. Not sure if the power will be back on within that time. We are hoping so. We are definitely hoping so. Also want to let you know that Hilton Head Island, the fire rescue, has 3 boat teams ready. They also have teams on standby for downed trees because with these heavy winds, these high winds, that's to be expected as well.
And for those of you watching us in the low country, of course, as you know, the governor issued a state of emergency in advance. Not a coastal event, he believes at this point. I don't know what his forecasters are telling him, but he says all of South Carolina certainly is going to be impacted by all of this.
And on that note, let's toss it over to Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson for the latest on Idalia.
Okay, remember, I think it was Greg mentioning about the tornado warning earlier that we had in Bullock County. So we went and looked at some of the storm reports that came in that were relayed by the National Weather Service. So right there, Statesboro, and right where that marker is, there was a funnel cloud reported near Highway 24 and the Zetwell Road area. No damage has come in so far, just a funnel cloud. That means the funnel comes down. Doesn't quite touch the ground. If it does, that would be a tornado. But certainly if that was moving through any rural portions of Bullock County and you happen to come across a tree down, may have been from that system. So we'll continue to provide you the updates. All right, let's go around the area and take a look at some of our live looks. And our producer in the back, well, I'll call for the Statesboro camera here in just a moment. Let's start at the coastline, though. Look at these waves just ripping there offshore of Tybee Island right now. A couple people out there just taking a look at things right now. Let's go to the Calabogie Sound. The top of the Harbortown Lighthouse is our vantage point right now, and it certainly appears that these are still mainly some easterly winds, so that's keeping the water in some of the sounds, the tidal creeks, rivers, and intercoastal waterways. We'll be watching the high tide coming up this evening for the potential of any coastal flooding. So the heaviest rain that we have right now, center of circulation starting to work its way Bacon Pierce into Wayne County now, and it's just northwest of that there is just a deluge of rain right now into Tattnall, Evans, Candler, and Bullock County. The Statesboro area, I believe we have a camera ready to go there. We can get sort of a gauge of what we're looking at in terms of wind and rain. Right down there to the lower right-hand corner, you can see those stoplights kind of shaking around. Nothing too unusual, just some wind gusts there. But it's the rain that if you venture out, some of these locations still have the flash flood warnings that are in the green outlines. I could see that expanding into portions of Evans, Candler, and Bullock County. In a moment, we'll get to the rain totals that we've had across the area so far. A wider vantage point here gives you a great look of where the center of Idalia is at, and it is continuing its trek. Notice here in the last frame, maybe a little more jump to the east. So a northeast movement right now could take that center very close or